He says he wants to stay friends. Part of you feels relieved. At least you won't lose him completely. But another part feels confused. If he can be emotionally present as a friend, why couldn't he do that as your partner? And why does every text exchange leave you feeling more unsettled than comforted?
Sound familiar? Last week, we heard from Deb, who shared her experience of becoming anxious after 8 years with a dismissive partner.
Notice the line, I'm treading dangerous waters by accepting friendship. Today, we're explaining why that instinct is absolutely correct. Because friendship with an avoidant ex isn't actually friendship. It's often just the relationship dynamic you already struggled with, but now with even more confusing boundaries.
We're Joel and Tehrina Terry, licensed therapists here to help you heal from anxious attachment, stop chasing unavailable love, and build the secure relationships and community you deserve.
Let's be honest about why the friendship offer feels so compelling, especially when your attachment system has been dysregulated by the relationship.
Dr. Sue Johnson's research on attachment bonds shows that when we've formed a strong emotional connection with someone, our nervous system doesn't simply turn off those attachment feelings because the relationship status changes.
Your manager parts, those protective aspects of your psyche that work proactively to prevent emotional harm, have spent months or years trying to figure out how to maintain connection with this person. When they offer friendship, these manager parts often think, finally, a way to keep them in my life without the confusion and pressure of romantic expectations.
But here's what your manager parts might not understand. If someone couldn't offer emotional consistency and availability as your partner, the same limitations that made the romantic relationship difficult will likely show up in friendship too.
Your exile parts, those vulnerable aspects of yourself that carry your deepest needs for love and connection, may feel desperate to accept any form of contact rather than face the full grief of losing this person completely. These parts often carry burdens like, any connection is better than no connection, or if I can just prove I'm not too much, maybe they'll want me back.
We know how isolating these decisions can feel, especially when you're questioning whether your instincts are right. That's actually one reason we're now sending weekly relationship emails every Wednesday.
These are designed to give you a midweek boost with practical tips for building healthier relationships. So when we moved from 3 videos a week to 2, we wanted to keep supporting your journey with these helpful Wednesday emails. So subscribe using the link below, or if you've already grabbed one of our free resources, you're already on the list. Now let's talk about why that friendship offer might not be the neutral, supportive connection it appears to be.
Dr. John Gottman's research on relationship patterns shows that people tend to carry their same communication and emotional availability patterns from relationship to relationship, including friendships.
Let's look at what typically happens. Your ex, who is emotionally avoidant as a partner, will likely be emotionally avoidant as a friend. The difference is that now when they withdraw, cancel plans last minute, or seem disinterested in your emotional world, you have no framework for addressing it.
In a romantic relationship, you had some standing to say, I need more emotional presence from you. Or, when you withdraw for days without explanation, it affects me. In friendship, those same behaviors might be dismissed as, well, that's just how friends are. Or, I shouldn't expect so much from a friendship.
Meanwhile, your manager parts that developed hypervigilant strategies during the relationship don't suddenly relax because the label changed. You might find yourself still analyzing their text response times, reading into their tone, or feeling anxious when they seem distant. But now you're telling yourself you shouldn't feel that way because you're just friends.
Your firefighter parts, reactive parts whose job is to numb overwhelming emotional pain through any means necessary, may activate just as intensely when your friend X is emotionally unavailable as they did during the relationship. But now there's an added layer of shame because you're supposed to be over it.
Dr. Sue Johnson calls this an attachment injury, a wound to your fundamental sense of safety in relationships. These injuries don't heal simply because you change the relationship category. Your nervous system still recognizes this person as someone who activated your attachment system, and it will continue to respond accordingly.
So how about you? Have you noticed the same painful patterns from your relationship showing up in friendship with an ex? If so, What strategies did your manager parts develop to try to make the relationship work? Share in the comments. Recognizing these patterns is crucial for protecting your emotional well-being.
One of the biggest challenges with ex friendships is that you're trying to navigate emotional intimacy with someone you used to be romantically involved with, but without clear guidelines about what's appropriate.
Dr. Shirley Glass's research on boundaries in relationships shows that unclear boundaries create what she calls windows and walls in the wrong places. Openness where there should be protection, and barriers where there should be connection.
In a healthy friendship, both people understand the limits of emotional intimacy and mutual support. But with an ex, especially an avoidant one, these boundaries often remain unclear because they were never clearly established during the relationship either.
Your manager parts might spend enormous energy trying to figure out the rules of this friendship. Can you share personal struggles? How much contact is appropriate? Are you allowed to express hurt when they're emotionally unavailable? Or is that too much for a friendship?
Meanwhile, your avoidant ex's manager parts, which work to maintain emotional distance and control, often prefer the undefined nature of ex friendship because it allows them to maintain connection while avoiding the accountability that clear boundaries would require.
This creates what Dr. Sue Johnson calls a negative cycle, where your parts are seeking clarity and emotional presence, while their parts are avoiding both. The friendship becomes another arena for the same pursuit-distance dynamic that characterized your romantic relationship.
So for Deb, who described treading dangerous waters, this undefined space between friendship and something more intimate can feel both hopeful and threatening. There's enough connection to keep your exile parts hoping for more, but just enough ambiguity to keep your manager parts constantly anxious about where you stand.
From a neurobiological perspective, Dr. Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory explains why friendship with an ex often keeps your nervous system in a state of chronic activation rather than allowing it to settle.
Your nervous system learned to associate this person with emotional unpredictability during your relationship. Their withdrawal triggered your sympathetic nervous system's fight or fawn response, while their occasional emotional availability activated your attachment-seeking behaviors.
When you attempt friendship, your nervous system doesn't differentiate between romantic and platonic interaction with this person. It recognizes their energy, their communication patterns, and their emotional availability.
Or unavailability.
And responds based on previous conditioning.
This means that even friendly interactions can leave you feeling dysregulated in ways that interactions with other friends don't. Your manager parts might notice you feel more anxious after spending time with them, but dismiss this as you being too sensitive, rather than recognizing it as valuable information about your nervous system's response.
Dr. Deb Dana's work on neuroception, your nervous system's subconscious detection of safety or threat, shows that your body often knows before your mind does whether a relationship is truly supportive or subtly destabilizing.
Your firefighter parts chronic activation by trying to numb out after interactions with your ex-friend, using strategies like compulsive social media scrolling, overeating, or substance use to manage the emotional overwhelm that you can't quite explain.
This is why Deb's description of treading dangerous waters is so accurate. Her nervous system is likely detecting that this friendship isn't the neutral, supportive connection that healthy friendships provide. It's an environment that keeps your attachment system partially activated and vigilant.
Perhaps the most painful aspect of ex-friendships is that they can keep your parts stuck in patterns of hoping for something that isn't actually available.
Dr. Helen Fisher's research on the neuroscience of attachment shows that intermittent contact with someone who triggered your attachment system can actually strengthen the neural pathways associated with craving their attention, rather than allowing those pathways to naturally weaken over time.
Your exile parts, which carry your deepest longings for love and security, often interpret any continued connection as evidence that reconciliation might be possible. These parts may carry burdens like, if I can just be the perfect friend, they'll realize what they lost. Or maybe they just needed space to appreciate me.
Meanwhile, your manager parts are working overtime to prove that you can handle the friendship without becoming too much or too emotional. These parts often take on extreme roles, suppressing your authentic reactions and needs to demonstrate that you're evolved enough to maintain a platonic relationship.
But here's what's actually happening. By accepting friendship terms that don't meet your emotional needs, you're often reinforcing the very same dynamic that made this romantic relationship unsustainable. Your parts are still trying to earn love and security from someone who has already demonstrated they can't consistently provide either.
Dr. John Gottman's research shows that healthy relationships require what he calls emotional attunement, the ability to notice, understand, and respond appropriately to your partner's emotional cues. If this attunement was missing in your romantic relationship, it's unlikely to develop in friendship.
And this is why the friendship often feels like you're getting crumbs of the connection you actually need. Your avoidant ex might offer just enough emotional presence to keep you engaged, but not actually enough to nourish your exile parts or help them release their attachment to this person.
Have you found yourself hoping that being a good friend would eventually lead to something more or prove your worth to your ex? What did your manager parts do to try to be the perfect friend? Share in the comments. These patterns are more common than you might think.
Sometimes what's offered as friendship is actually a way for avoidant individuals to maintain some connection and validation without offering genuine emotional reciprocity.
Dr. Jennifer Freyd's research on betrayal trauma shows that intermittent reinforcement, occasional positive responses mixed with consistent emotional unavailability, create some of the strongest psychological bonds, even when those bonds are ultimately harmful.
Your ex's manager parts might prefer the friendship arrangement because it allows them to maintain connection when convenient while avoiding the deeper emotional accountability that healthy relationships require. They can reach out when they need support, then withdraw when you need the same, without the same level of reciprocity that romantic relationships typically involve.
And this dynamic can be particularly confusing for your parts because the person is offering genuine care sometimes, which makes it harder to recognize when their overall pattern is still emotionally withholding.
Your manager parts might spend enormous energy trying to distinguish between this person cares about me but has limited emotional capacity, and this person is using our history to maintain connection without reciprocating emotional investment. Both can look very similar on the surface.
Dr. Sue Johnson's work on attachment demonstrates that healthy connections require what she calls accessibility, responsiveness, and engagement, the A.R.E. of secure relationships. If these qualities were inconsistently present in your romantic relationship, friendship is unlikely to magically create them.
And for someone like Deb, whose attachment system was dysregulated by 8 years of emotional unpredictability, friendship with her ex might feel like safety because it's connection without the pressure of romantic expectations. But it may actually be preventing her nervous system from fully settling and her parts from grieving the relationship that couldn't meet her needs.
True friendship requires mutual emotional generosity and the ability to show up consistently for each other's well-being. If your ex couldn't offer this as your partner, it's worth questioning whether they can authentically offer it as your friend. If you're recognizing breadcrumbing patterns disguised as friendship and want to get clearer about what you actually need in relationships, our must-haves and deal-breakers guide can help you identify your core relationship needs versus what you've been accepting. It's free and linked in the description.
The path forward involves what Internal Family Systems calls your capital S self, which is your core essence that's calm, curious, and compassionate. Self's job is to get to know your part's hopes about this friendship and to help them understand what's actually available.
In IFS terms, this means helping your manager parts release their burden of believing they can create safety and connection through perfect friendship behavior, and helping your exile parts understand that continued contact might be preventing them from grieving and moving towards relationships that can actually nourish them.
Self can get curious about your manager parts, saying, I notice parts of me working really hard to maintain this friendship and prove I'm not too much. What are these parts hoping will happen if they succeed? Often these parts will share that they're trying to avoid the pain of complete loss or even hoping to eventually earn back romantic love.
With your firefighter parts, self might ask, I see parts that get activated and need to numb out after spending time with this person. What do these parts need me to know about how this friendship is affecting our well-being? These parts often reveal that the friendship feels more destabilizing than genuinely supportive.
And with your exile parts, self can offer compassion, saying, I understand the exile parts don't want to let go of this connection because losing them completely feels devastating. What do these exiles need to feel safe enough to consider whether this friendship is actually helping them heal or keeping them stuck?
Self-leadership means making decisions based on what actually serves your well-being rather than what your parts hope might eventually happen. This might mean accepting that no contact is the healthiest choice, even if it initially feels more painful than the ambiguous comfort of friendship.
For our viewer whose instincts are telling her she's in dangerous waters, self-leadership might mean trusting that inner wisdom over her part's desire to maintain connection at any cost. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your parts is to protect them from environments that kept them activated and hoping for something that isn't available. If you've ever accepted a friendship offer from an ex because losing them felt completely unbearable, give this video a like as it helps others who are navigating this painful decision find this content.
Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's research on grief shows that healing from loss requires moving through stages that include denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Maintaining friendship with an ex often keeps people stuck in the bargaining stage.
Your parts may be unconsciously using the friendship to avoid facing the full reality of what you've lost. As long as this person is still in your life in some capacity, your exile parts don't have to fully grieve the romantic relationship that couldn't meet your needs.
This avoidance of grief, while understandable, often prevents your parts from developing the internal resources they need to attract and recognize truly available partners in the future.
Dr. Sue Johnson's work shows that unresolved attachment injuries can create emotional ghosts that interfere with new relationships. If your parts are still hoping for resolution with your ex, they may struggle to fully invest in new connections.
Complete no contact, while initially more painful, often allows your nervous system to fully settle and your parts to process the relationship realistically, including both what you genuinely miss and what wasn't actually working. We have a whole video on going no contact, which we're going to link at the end of this video.
This doesn't mean your ex is a bad person or that the relationship itself was meaningless. It means accepting that some connections, no matter how deep, aren't structured in a way that can support the ongoing emotional intimacy that friendship requires.
Healthy grief allows your parts to integrate what they learned from the relationship while releasing their attachment to outcomes that aren't available. This creates space for connections that can actually meet your needs rather than keeping you focused on trying to get different results from the same dynamic.
Have you noticed ways that maintaining friendship with an ex might be preventing you from fully grieving the romantic relationship? What would your parts need to feel safe enough to consider no contact? Share in the comments. Grief is difficult, but often necessary for genuine healing.
Research by Dr. Cindy Hazan on adult attachment shows that individuals with different attachment styles have fundamentally different capacities for maintaining emotional boundaries in friendships with former romantic partners. Dr. Philip Shaver's studies reveal that people with avoidant attachment often prefer ex-friendships because they provide connection without the emotional demands that romantic relationships typically require. This preference doesn't necessarily mean that they can offer genuine friendship. It may mean they prefer relationships with built-in emotional distance. Neuroimaging studies by Dr. Naomi Eisenberger show that social rejection activates the same brain regions as physical pain. For people whose attachment systems were dysregulated during their romantic relationship, contact with their ex can continue triggering these pain pathways even in friendly interactions. Dr. Mary Ainsworth's research on attachment security demonstrates that healthy relationships require what she calls secure-based behavior, the ability to provide comfort and support when needed. If your ex couldn't consistently offer this as your partner, friendship is unlikely to develop this capacity. Studies on trauma bonding by Dr. Patrick Carnes show that intermittent contact with someone who created attachment insecurity can actually strengthen problematic neural pathways rather than allowing them to heal through natural neuroplasticity. Most significantly, Dr. Sue Johnson's research demonstrates that healing from attachment injuries requires either genuine repair within the relationship or complete discontinuation of contact to allow new, secure attachment patterns to develop.
So let's get to the heart of it. If you're currently navigating friendship with an avoidant ex, or considering whether to accept that offer, your instincts about it feeling complicated are probably accurate. The parts of you that want to maintain connection aren't wrong to want that. Your exile parts are trying to avoid the pain of complete loss, and your manager parts are trying to find a way to keep someone important in your life. These are understandable protective responses. But here's what those parts might not fully understand yet. If someone couldn't offer consistent emotional presence and availability as your partner, friendship often becomes another version of the same dynamic you already found unsustainable. Your manager parts don't need to keep working so hard to figure out how to make this friendship work or to prove that you're not too much. The difficulty you're experiencing probably isn't because you're doing friendship wrong. It's because you're trying to maintain emotional intimacy with someone whose protective parts create distance whenever connection deepens. The hypervigilance your manager parts developed during your relationship, analyzing their responses, managing your emotional expression, walking on eggshells, often transfers directly into the friendship. But now there's an added layer of confusion because you're supposed to be over it. Your firefighter parts don't need to numb out or distract from the anxiety that comes after spending time with this person, because that anxiety is information. It's your nervous system telling you that this interaction didn't provide the safety and reciprocity that genuine friendship offers. And your exile parts don't need to accept friendship crumbs while hoping for something more substantial. The connection you're craving, consistent emotional presence, authentic care, reciprocal support, these aren't too much to ask for. You're just asking them from someone who has already shown they can't provide them, regardless of the relationship category. When self leads with wisdom and compassion, you can appreciate what this person meant to you while also accepting that ongoing contact might be preventing the healing your parts actually need. The grief of complete no contact is often intense, but finite. The confusion and partial activation of staying in undefined friendship can last indefinitely, keeping your parts stuck in patterns that prevent them from fully investing in connections that could actually nourish them. Like Deb said, you might be treading dangerous waters by accepting friendship, not because your ex is dangerous, but because your attachment system recognizes this as a person who couldn't provide security. And friendship often keeps that recognition activated rather than allowing it to settle. Trust the part of you that knows this feels complicated. Sometimes the most self-compassionate choice is protecting your parts from environments that keep them hoping for something that isn't available, even when that environment is offered as friendship.
And if this video helps you understand why friendship with an avoidant ex feels so complicated, please share it with someone who might be wrestling with a similar decision.
And here's the link to that no contact video we made, which will help you let go.
Subscribe and take care of your heart.
And remember, you're not alone. We're all in this
Together.